What's up, everyone? Here we are for probably the most hyped chapter in maybe all of One Piece. Like, the one panel at the end was crazy, and I can't wait for this to be animated, probably this time next year in 2023. This is actually so wild because this week's first read reaction won't be the same as the other weeks. I just happened to start streaming last week and with the intentions of live reacting to this chapter.
Oh no,
and I had
Luffy.
no clue that this chapter was going to be this wild.
We got
So if you want to catch my live reading of chapter 1043, check out my Twitch VODs. I had a lot of fun interacting with everyone there, and I'm hoping I can continue that tradition. But as you know, at the minimum every week after posting a chapter reaction video, I will be streaming afterwards so that we can talk about the chapter in more detail. But anyways, this video will be talking about One Piece chapter 1043. So if you're not caught up, go check out my other videos. If you're new to my channel, the way I view the world is by making connections. So let me connect you to my vision, the ParVision. So starting with the chapter title, We Die Together. I hope that doesn't change to something lame in the official translations because I really like this meaning right now. After reading the whole chapter, it definitely is a very fitting title to have for one of the most bonkers chapters to ever really release. So it starts off with a continuation of Kaido's, quote, full power swing. I think Kaido is actually holding back here, and you'll understand why I say that in a second. You can still see the distraught look on Kaido's face. It's full of regrets, but the smash connects and puts Luffy into the roof, and with all the Conqueror's lightning bouncing off of the hit. We see Luffy oozing blood out of every part that can ooze blood, to be honest. And this is the part where I start to believe that Kaido actually held back. Kaido's swing didn't follow through. He still has his Kanabo up, and when you look at the next panel, it kind of feels like Kaido would have been able to break the roof, to be honest. He pierced it with Boro Breath, and I feel like full strength Kaido will be able to break the roof if he wanted to, unless we have power scalers saying that Onigashima's skull is that strong. But anyways, this guy, this CP0 mass member in this panel just looked resolved for death. Like, he is just like, it's done. And then we get this annoying dude. I swear in my live reaction, I could not stop being annoyed at this dude. Like, I won't even call him a CP0 member anymore. He's just a spectator at this point. He was watching from some window apparently. Like, I don't even know what's going on with him. Then we see Luffy release air and he blows away like a balloon, and Kaido watches him go, and interestingly we see Momo reacting while still pulling Onigashima. He senses that Luffy's voice is gone, which is a significant statement. So one, the way Momo says this feels like this is Momo demonstrating a high level of observation haki. Whether it's fine-tuned for just Luffy, we aren't sure yet, but look at how far he is to sense that. And to put it into perspective, when Big Mom was defeated and tossed out of the bottom of Wano, Kaido could sense that Big Mom was defeated, but Luffy could not. With the same relative distance, Momo can instead sense that Luffy's voice is gone. And I want to wait for the official translations, but this is another interesting point because a voice being gone means death, right? So when I read this next part live on my stream, it hit me in waves. So first we see Luffy landing back on the skull, which confused me more because I was thinking, oh, Momo's just not sensing Luffy's because that means he was gone, like because of the distance. But nah, Luffy is still here, but the voice is still gone. Kaido is angry, it looks like, and then we get this. This is what Oda has been setting up for this entire time. I was wondering why Oda started using the victor cards to declare the state of the fights, but after we see dead-eyed Luffy, we see the winner of the fight declared to be Kaido, the King of Beasts, which is ironic because the last chapter title that said winners don't need epithets, but Oda gave him his epithet here. And Kaido kind of just looks at the masked CP0 member, which I want to point out how like respectable this CP0 member is, like honorable, respectable. He gained so much respect from me. I want to know his name. He knows what he did. He knows he's gonna die, and he's not even trying to run. He knows there's literally no point in running from Kaido, so he'll just stand and take it and doesn't even say a word. Like, Kaido asks if he understands what he has done, and the guy has no answer and just fixes his hat. Like, he's just like, yep, here we are. I don't know about you guys, but every panel and every new chapter showing me this CP0 member has progressively upped the level of respect I have for him. It's wild that he is a CP0 member and he has to die because I love him so much. But here we go. Kaido does his full power swing. And I say that because look at the aftermath of this swing. Look at the smash on the rooftop. Look at the Conqueror's lightning. Compared to the hit that Luffy got, this looked way more powerful. And what I said before about Kaido holding back, he definitely did not hold back here. Also, just a side note, what gave the skull this scar? It looks really dope. Was it Zoro? I'm just forgetting. So if someone can fill in the blank, that'd be great. But yeah, this time Kaido breaks the skull roof ceiling barrier with the smash. So you know he didn't hit Luffy full power. At least that's what it feels like given the body language and the aftermath. And then we see this annoying masked dude again. Like, what is he even doing? I feel like I'm gonna regret being so annoyed about this. And Oda's probably gonna give this dude a reason or purpose for being like this, but like still, like why? It's still annoying to see this. This guy is so useless. Like, I know they're supposed to be the antagonist of the show, but when I got so much respect for this masked CP0 guy and I see him hard carrying so much, I can't help but be annoyed about dead weight. Like the one person in a group project that kind of reads the assignment and tells you what to do for some reason, but doesn't do any of the work. That's what this guy feels like right now. We see the samurai gathering around Kawamatsu, and they're relatively powerless against the massive flames, and then we see what looks like a rogue Boro breath from Kaido, and then Kaido appears, basically announcing himself that Luffy is dead, and that for him to fully end the rebellion, he has to take down Momo or force him to surrender. It's ironic because Momo is actually outside, and it's a little weird, right? That Kaido can't sense Momo, the other dragon that's literally pulling the island that he's supposed to be directing? And then we see another interesting line from Law, and he says he also noticed that Luffy's voice has vanished. And then we get the reaction from Luffy's allies. The most heart-wrenching one has to be Nami's. That was a rough one to imagine and a tough panel to read. Kaido tries to wipe the rest of the resistance out, but Marco comes in with a blue flame counter shield, and we see Nami literally on the ground in agony and tears over what is supposedly Luffy's death. Kaido pretty much proclaims his victory by asserting what he plans to do with his rule over Wano. It's kind of crazy how well this dialogue fits with the Kaido video that I just made yesterday. Everything about how Kaido says that everyone on Wano is his slave and he is planning on working them to their deaths. I just want to add, no matter what anyone says, Kaido is demonstrated to be the strongest character I've ever seen. I don't think I've seen a villain in fiction ever do what Kaido did. Kaido has been fighting non-stop pretty much on top of Onigashima in a King of Hill style. He fought the Minks, the Red Scabbards, Luffy, the three captains with Zoro and Killer, then Luffy again, then Yamato and Momo, and Luffy with them, and then Luffy solo again, and the fight with Luffy was pretty long too, with each time Kaido coming out on top and definitively winning, and these are not fodder fights, and this last time even with the victory card. So I dub Kaido not just King of the Hill, King of the Mountain, Supreme King of the Mountain to be correct. Even though the end of the chapter doesn't speak well for Kaido's future, I think Kaido deserves to say he won. Then we see the rest of the Beast Pirates muster up the courage and make use of the winning momentum that Kaido brought to take out Kid and Law. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this the first time we've seen someone on Law's crew actually do something? Like, oh wait, actually, maybe I'm being a little bit rude. I just realized Law's crew was on the submarine. But Beppo was on Onigashima, right? Why isn't he protecting Law here? Where's his Sulong form? Anyways, we get some more scattered updates of reactions from people scattered on Onigashima. Then we see, despite what Law and Kid said previously about them not having the willpower to fight if Kaido were the one to emerge from the rooftop instead of Luffy, they again contradict themselves and are at what looks like death's door in terms of fighting and countering Kaido at all. Then we have a really important conversation between Yamato and Momo. Yamato is convincing Momo to fight with her against Kaido, given Kaido has to be somewhat fatigued by this point and everyone else in the battle is at their limits. She's right that Momo and Yamato are actually probably the only two left on Onigashima that can really put up a fight, besides maybe Jinbei, who can offer some sort of resistance. I'd imagine Yamato alone could provide quite the resistance. But oh wait, there's also Marco. Kid and Law are definitely powerhouses, but I wouldn't expect much help from them given that they took out Big Mom and are super tired. But so if Momo, Marco, Yamato, and maybe you don't even need Jinbei in that lineup, I actually think those people could give Kaido a run for his money right now. I'm not saying that they would win, but it would be a mythical Zoan fight that could successfully stall Kaido long enough for Luffy's return. So I want to pause here to mention a few things. In this stream, someone had asked me what my predictions were for chapter 1043 before going to the chapter because I stay away from spoilers, so I had no clue what to expect. And one of the things that I said was that there might be two outcomes for Luffy. One is that whatever happens to him, he will need a stall period, similar to what happened in Dressrosa and against Katakuri. Luffy needed to take like a 10-minute break each time right before the last bout. And yeah, Luffy had already kind of gotten that here, but this time it feels like this is the last one. The second thing I said was that Luffy might demonstrate some sort of unconscious mode where something takes over him, and this is part of my Luffy's true devil fruit theory that I didn't make the video for yet because I was waiting for this chapter, but I did talk about it in my second Twitch VOD. So why did I say an unconscious mode? Well, because in this arc, Luffy has done this twice where he gets knocked out by Kaido, but he has some sort of conqueror's haki pressure staring down at Kaido and at people while unconscious. This happened in Kuri when Kaido first Thunder Bagwa'd Luffy and he went unconscious, and again on the rooftop in chapter 1009. Kaido is basically confused, wondering how Luffy still managed to stare down at Kaido in defeat. I'm going to talk about this again at the end of the chapter, but I want to mention it here because whatever happens, I think it's feeling like Luffy is going to need someone to stall, and it would be so epic if Momo were a part of that. In my last chapter reaction video, I talked about how because Momo has aged up to 28, he has sword training, Odin's blood, and the cherry on top, the natural durability and strength from acquiring Kaido's devil fruit. On top of that, for those saying Momo does not have haki, he did technically demonstrate observation haki earlier in this chapter. So maybe there is a world where Momo teams up with Yamato to deliver a meaningful resistance against Kaido. Especially if you added Marco in the mix, I would be down for something like this because then it's not like there's any expectation of Momo to win over Kaido, but winning in that context would be Momo stalling out for Luffy. We also have the situation where Kaido is actively seeking out Momo, so Momo will have a proper chance to confront Kaido and possibly fight him. And when you think about it, Yamato and Marco are the perfect people to help Momo in this situation because of the relative connections and ties to Odin. But going back to the panels, Momo's childish cowardice is showing, and Yamato gave it to him straight, told him what needed to be said without sugarcoating anything, that giving up was worse than dying because that meant not trying literally everything and trying to save the people of Wano from being enslaved and worked to death. And Yamato tells Momo the hard truth, that their only real option is the title name, to fight, and if they die, we die together. So again, I want to pause here because Momo is real goofy for this. Momo wants to give up to Kaido because Luffy lost, and Yamato explained why that's not an option. So naturally, if I was Momo in this situation, I would think of all the tools and assets that I have that I could throw at Kaido to possibly win. Like, what would I do? What do I possibly have in my tool belt? I feel like there's an elephant in the room that's not being addressed, but I can't quite think of it. Oh wait! The actual continent-sized elephant that's not even 2 chapters ago said, Momo, I am awaiting your orders. I have come to join the fight at your side. This whole time I was thinking like, who can Zunisha fight? Especially if Luffy beats Kaido, because I wasn't thinking that Luffy was gonna die. But now we get the update at the end of the chapter on top of this. It's like the first thing that I would do if I were Momo here. I would just command Zunisha to fight Kaido with me. I don't even know what that would look like, but so now it's Momo, Yamato, possibly Marco, and Zunisha. I think they can actually hold down Kaido, right? Like that's a solid lineup. But that's when it really hit me. Even if Zunisha can't fight without having everyone as collateral damage, what he could do would be just to spray Onigashima with a massive pump of water. I'd imagine the force could rattle Kaido up, right? And then I realized, oh wait, Zunisha is probably going to do this anyways because of what Kawamatsu said earlier in the chapter. So I know this sequence is relatively minor for the entire chapter, but it really feels like Kawamatsu just blatantly foreshadowed this solution. Like I read this normally, then I read these lines for him like this. Oh no, if only we weren't up in the sky. There's no water around here. We can't do anything to quell these flames. Whatever should we do? Oh no. But yeah, it's like if there's nothing else for Zunisha to do, it's going to be to douse Onigashima in a massive load of water. Oh, and then maybe Yamato freezes Kaido in a giant block of ice? I'll definitely be thinking about this and all of the progressions and sequences that might happen, but there's at least one way Zunisha participates in this war, right? So getting back to the chapter, I'm glad we got this panel colored by Greisch. Sorry if I mispronounced it, because I try not to simp for fiction, but Yamato really made it hard for me not to in this chapter. So then we cut back to Luffy, and honestly, in my live reaction, I kind of just sat there and stared at Luffy like this. I was kind of processing this, like it doesn't feel like Luffy is actually dead based on the chapter progression and the feel of the chapter. Like he is considered dead. He has the dead eyes. There's no meat around him to magically revive him. There's no hormone boost like he got in Marineford. There's no shadows to insert into him like he had in Thriller Bark. His crew isn't there to beg for him to get up. There's no Usopp to give him the last stand pep talk like he had in Enies Lobby. There's no Paw fruit for the pain reduction power either, and also no one really that could even withstand the pain. Actually, I kind of just realized no one had to take the pain for Luffy. Kumo was kind of just being an asshole to Zoro. But anyways, unlike any time previously, Luffy is defeated and alone and has none of his normal support. But yeah, this is the panel we all were never hoping to see. After 1043 chapters, Luffy is actually shown to be dead. I mean, Law and Momo both felt his presence disappear. That is pretty huge. Our main character is actually dead. But then we get the next panel where Zunisha is talking to Momo. He says he can hear it. And then he asks, "What can you hear, Zunisha?" He says, and this is the unofficial translation so far, but it really takes me back. "I can hear the drums of liberation." And this is the first time in 800 years. He is there without a doubt. And Momo asks who? And Zunisha says, "Joy Boy." And to recreate what happened in my live stream, I was only scrolled enough to see this panel, and I immediately freaked out, scrolled up, and was like, are we talking about our boy, Joy Boy, right here? Not realizing I was on the last panel of the chapter already. And then we get to this, Zunisha saying Joy Boy has returned. And to top it all off, it says he's returned over this out of this world panel of Luffy. So that just confirms that, yeah, Luffy is not dead, but like he probably did die. But he is smiling, and it looks like smoke is coming off his body, and his hair is like Treble's hair, like it's melting or like it's gooey or something. I wouldn't say melting because it doesn't really look like smoke is coming off his hair, and it's actually like floating upwards, so it's really interesting. There's so many ideas that I have that came out during my live stream. Like seeing these last few panels, like sure, Oda gave the victory card to Kaido, but that was against Luffy, not Joy Boy. And so now Kaido is going to continue to defend his hill, it seems. And the next major contender will be Joy Boy. A future chapter title name will probably be Joy Boy versus Kaido. And I think the fact that Kaido was given the victory in this chapter and says Straw Hat Luffy is dead, but then in the same chapter we see Joy Boy has returned and it's over a smiling Luffy, I think that's enough to say, one, that yes, Straw Hat Luffy is dead. But that's because we're now gonna get Joy Boy Luffy, or a new version of Luffy, a more completed version, if you will. Also, the end panel almost certainly just confirms that Kaido is going to lose. At least that was my feelings when I was reading this. But to run through some of the reactions I did have, first of all, I think this part where Zunisha says, I can hear the drums of liberation. What drums? And then I noticed the dum dum dum, and I kept going back and realized it's playing over Luffy, right? So this means it's probably Luffy's heartbeat that is the drums of liberation. Like maybe it's not Luffy's heartbeat, it's Joy Boy's. So that's why Luffy's voice disappeared. It's not necessarily that he died, it's that his body is being taken over by Joy Boy, probably. Which I just want to say lines up really well with my Luffy True Devil Fruit theory video that I'm making. But okay, the second thing is, I think this is probably one of the most wholesome reunion connections in maybe all of fiction. Zunisha is supposed to be Joy Boy's companion and friend. Can you imagine going 800 years and recognizing your long lost friend from their heartbeat? Like it's not even like a smell or sound or sight, it's the heartbeat. That has to be one of the most wholesome connections. Like it reminded me of how when Zoro and Luffy reconnected on Wano, that was already so heartwarming. Now I have to see what Joy Boy and Zunisha were like in their past lives. This was absolutely insane to feel. But it's also got to make you wonder why Joy Boy's heartbeat is dubbed the drums of liberation. If that's the correct translation of it at least, I wonder if the drums of liberation pair up or synergizes with Bello Betty's pump pump fruit. That would be interesting for sure. It also reminds me of the golden bell on Skypiea, that when it rang, it was supposed to guide the souls and spirits to everyone to let them know where they are. So now going back to what I said before, maybe this is unconscious Luffy, or rather the times before when Luffy went unconscious and Kaido felt like he was being looked down on, maybe those were times where this Joy Boy consciousness was leaking out. Now that Luffy died, it seems like the Joy Boy consciousness has fully taken over. And also remember in my last chapter reaction, I pointed out in Gear 4, Luffy has to say everything on his mind. So it might be that Joy Boy has been progressively being more present in Luffy's psyche, but for him to fully manifest it, he needed Luffy to die. But it's not really death, right? Since Zunisha probably is hearing Luffy's heartbeat. So Luffy's soul is probably depleted and it's being supplemented by Joy Boy at the moment. Which brings me to a panel that was shown to me during the stream. It's so ironic with all of the statements Kaido has said. But Kaido said earlier, but death is what completes a person. Isn't that true? This is so ironic because this might be the case for Luffy, where he dies and is then completed. He might fully awaken to his true potential, which contains Joy Boy. And I say contains very strategically to hint at my Luffy true power theory. But when you take a step back and you look at the page that this is from, it's Kaido talking to the Red Scabbards. Kaido praises them and goes, "That sense of determination. I love the way of the samurai." And then he pauses and then goes on to say, now Roger and Whitebeard, they did it right. It may not be the way of the times anymore, but death is what completes a person. So when you look at everything Kaido says here, one, he is contradicting his perspective on the samurai literally from like chapter 1042, but then he was praising Roger and Whitebeard for doing what they did and dying for it. Which is also ironic considering Kaido has this desire to die, but he also hates losing. And I don't think he has a desire that is so great that it would motivate him to fight regardless if it means that he might lose. Unlike Luffy. Luffy has been fighting Kaido with no care of whether he loses. He is putting his life on the line and clashing with Kaido until he wins, even if it means he dies. I wonder if the roles were reversed, if Kaido would act the same. I feel like Kaido is more afraid of being a loser than he is of dying, which is what prevents him to really achieve his dreams. It's kind of ironic also, right, because Kaido amasses his army's strength by poaching strong pirates, and the really strong pirates he recruits by systematically destroying their willpower. It's almost like Kaido doesn't believe that there can be a will so strong that it's unbreakable like Roger's or Whitebeard's, or even Luffy's now, and so he tries to test that every time he sees someone who has a strong will. Putting chapter 1043 into context of this line, it almost feels like it would be fitting for Kaido to have added Luffy's name in there with Roger and Whitebeard, because Luffy is officially dead and he died pursuing his will. It's also more ironic because of what Kaido said in chapter 1014, where he basically mocked Luffy's Gum Gum Fruit's name and said to a falling Luffy, "You couldn't be Joy Boy either, it seems." At this point, it seems like Kaido just reverse leaked the progression of Wano with nearly every speech he had. Kaido is gonna be rudely awakened by the fact that Luffy is Joy Boy, with an asterisk there. Like, it's still technically not confirmed, but obviously it definitely feels like it. But it would be very Oda-like to still leave us in the dark. But this panel is interesting, right? Like, Kaido determined that Luffy couldn't be Joy Boy based off of what criteria? It kind of feels like Kaido knows the criteria of Joy Boy, or how to awaken Joy Boy. But going back to the asterisks, so there's 3 things about this last panel of chapter 1043. Let's say for the sake of conversation that this is yes, 100% Luffy is Joy Boy. Then the question is, how is he Joy Boy, right? Is Joy Boy possessing Luffy's body? If so, will we see the double layered eyes on Luffy from my double layered eyes theory video? That would be wild. But another question is Joy Boy just a title? Right now, it feels like Joy Boy was a specific person. Another line of thinking is Luffy a descendant of Joy Boy, or is this a chosen one type of deal? I don't know if that's the route, but maybe it's tied to his bloodline. But if that were the case, wouldn't the Gorosei want to smother the Monkey D bloodline? Whereas they put so much emphasis on Roger's bloodline and the Port God's bloodline. Or maybe Joy Boy is like Luffy's nine-tailed fox? I kind of wouldn't really like that, to be honest. So then the question is Luffy Joy Boy because of his fruit? Meaning, is the fruit somehow the reason for Joy Boy to manifest in Luffy? And I'm kind of leaning towards this. The alternative option right now would be the straw hat, would be how Luffy is connected to Joy Boy. There could be a world where this is true. I even had my tinfoil hat theory about how the straw hat might be a person because of its indestructibility, but also its emphasis in Luffy's execution in Logtown. But the reason I have right now for why it could be or also not be the straw hat is more flimsy. And again, I'm leaning towards this Joy Boy situation being related to the fruit because Kaido mocked Luffy's fruit, and then the Gorosei specifically had a realization about a fruit awakening and had a panic attack, and thereafter gave the concise order for CP0 Guy to force Luffy's death in the fight against Kaido. And I just want to point out that this whole time, and not just in Onigashima, but in the entire series, capturing Robin has always been the top priority. But this order to take out Luffy took priority above that. All of this and more are reasons why I think it is Luffy's fruit. I have my theory. If you guys have been on my Twitch or Twitter, then you already know I have the name and the premise of the fruit, and I proposed it before the chapter dropped, but was waiting for this chapter to really see if we got any details that might counter it. If anything, I think it got even more support. So to give you guys a teaser of what I think the fruit might be that isn't making it a completely different fruit than the Gomu Gomu no Mi, I personally don't think it will be a mythical human model zone, because to me, if Oda were doing that, then I feel like he would have made Sengoku and his fruit more apparent, especially in the recent chapters, to kind of prepare us and have us more acquainted with the mythical human Zoan fruit. Considering if Luffy were something like that, then Sengoku would be the other primary one. My theory differs, though I haven't seen the ones around oil and fat, but that would be interesting since rubber's natural source is tree sap basically. My only issue right now with that logic of just simply changing the substance of Luffy's fruit to something more expansive is that I don't see how that would connect to Joy Boy, or even more importantly, help Luffy change the outcome of this battle. Logia powers wouldn't necessarily give Luffy an edge over Kaido here, in my opinion. My line of thinking is that when you look at Luffy and his progression through the series, it's like Luffy has been collecting wills and gathering and grouping willpower. That is something that the Gorosei really want to counter. They primarily operate by suppressing willpower and ending powerful bloodlines. So if Luffy's fruit were based off some kind of accumulation power, and I have the possible name for it and plenty of evidence to back up this idea, I think that might be the way where Luffy's fruit is still the Gomu Gomu no Mi and can still incorporate Joy Boy into his arsenal. I'll be going into more details about this through in a separate video. I'll also be making a deep dive video considering it is a break week, but I'm honestly not sure what I'd be deep diving since I already said I'll be making a Luffy's true devil fruit theory video, and I'm going into detail in this video, so we'll see what happens. That being said, I do want to give you more of my line of thinking that Luffy's fruit has to do with some kind of storage or history. When you think of rubber, it's kind of a substance that retains its form or adapts. I've been saying this for a while, but Hawkins' straw fruit having this ability to connect fates, for example, is a stretch that can be tied to straw in a lot of ways. I feel like this similar unique utility is what Luffy's fruit might embody. So my personal theory of Luffy's fruit, and what some of you are thinking about, which is that it might be the resin fruit, I like the resin idea because natural rubber is basically tree sap like resin and is just with different properties. But as I mentioned before, a simple substance change for Luffy wouldn't be the proper power up. But interestingly, amber, resin, and my theory connect in an interesting way, which is preservation, where both ideas can kind of allude to the idea that in some way or form, Luffy is able to bring something that was lost in time into reality, such as Joy Boy. And to tease you guys a little more than that, so Zunisha is known to be connected to Joy Boy, and a lot of times when Oda introduces groups of people, he often uses the same reference point as inspiration for that group. So like all of Shanks' crew being named after red or alcohol, or how Gold Roger, Silver's Rayleigh, Scopper Gaban all had metal in their names. So with that, Zunisha is very clearly a reference source from Salvador Dali's Elephants painting. There's several meanings and interpretations of it that really reflect Zunisha, and I think think an important thing to emphasize was Dali gave these legs to the elephants to demonstrate long legs of desire. Desire being the key word that I keep bringing back up in my chapter reactions and my emotional hockey theory. That being said, there are 3 Dali paintings that share a similar style and setting, and that's the Persistence of Memory and the Rose Meditative. And the one I want to connect to chapter 1043 was the art given to Luffy in this last panel. It's so unique, and it reminds me of the Persistence of Memory painting that Dali created. But before we talk about that, I want to tie this imagery to some possible connections in One Piece. It kind of reminded me of Treble or even Caribou's swamp power. Caribou's swamp power is really interesting though because of its ability to hold basically an infinite amount of things inside it. And also, where is Caribou right now? As a reminder, he was with Luffy and Momo before they returned to Onigashima. This isn't Caribou, right? That honestly would be really crazy, but I don't think that's what's gonna happen. But other than that, an interesting point is that Luffy's hair here, it really reminded me of Dali's painting, The Persistence of Memory. And I want to thank my Twitch chat. There was a viewer that brought the name to the surfaces of my memory, going back to the idea that if Zunisha was a reference to Dali's elephants, then maybe Joy Boy is also a reference to a Dali work. And Persistence of Memory here makes sense. What's being represented is this cold, hard material, and also the concept of time being bent and basically melted like cheese, with exposure to the sun or even without the sun. To me, it kind of just feels like the point of this is that time and permanence are a forced perspective. We use those things to hold up our reality and for our society, when the real reality of it is that space and time aren't these concrete concepts that we truly understand yet. But even more so that dreams and memories distort time and space and hold shape. I could go on and on about this here, but you're probably like, is this a real connection? Well, if the Zunisha one wasn't hard enough as a reference, I'd reference you to chapter 1030, the title of the chapter being Echoing the Impermanence of All Things. And what's even more, Oda chose to use the reader request to depict an army of ants congregating towards something and stepping over Brook, which is really interesting because in the Persistence of Memory, Dali uses ants to depict decay and death. Brook being that, but they're walking past Brook. All of these concepts of death and time and dreams and memories seem to converge on chapter 1043, where we are getting the death of Luffy and the possibility of some transcendence that breaks our reality and makes our dreams of learning about Joy Boy finally come true, and also forever instills this chapter, this panel, this main character in our memories, because the only thing permanent in life is memories and history. All that being said, I hope you guys always remember me and come back to my channel for more of my unique perspective and hopefully support my future endeavors also. I'm not always going to be right, but I hope I can at least make life a little more interesting for you all. I can't wait to expand my operations, but also as a reminder, my plan will be to always stream right after I upload a major video or chapter reaction video, so that we can talk more about it together. I've been having so much fun with it, and if you've already been there, you know I have a hard time being tight-lipped about my future theory videos, and I end up leaking them before I can organize them into a video. So if you want to hear more about my Luffy theory, follow me on Twitch and ask me about it on stream. I can't end the video without saying chapter 1043 is probably the biggest chapter in all of One Piece history, and I'm so glad that I'm here talking about it with you all. And so, like always, thank you for connecting with me, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you all on the next ParVision.